At this place in history, we're in the town of Essex, very close to the Colchester line, with Steve Perkins, the executive director of the Vermont Historical Society. Steve, what brings us over here this week?
Well, Mike, you're right. We are on the Essex side of 40th and Allen. So I think a lot of people drive by here. They see there's a fort. So what does that mean? What happened here? There's a museum you can go visit. So we're going to go inside and we're going to talk to William Parkinson, who's the curator.
We had a powerful senator, Senator Redfield Proctor. He had been Secretary of War, and he wanted to bring the fort to Vermont. And basically, it was a training base. When you're trying to get a bill passed, they use the excuse that it's an international border just a little ways up there, so we really should have a military base there. And when the Congress passed the bill in 1892, they said it had to be between Burlington and Canada, and it had to be on a railroad line. In 1894, in September of 1894, we got our first troops here, 500 men and 400 horses. In the early 1900s, mid-1900s, they added 7th Field Artillery came in. It was built for peak at 8,000 men. During World War I and World War II were our two massive peaks. And at that point, we had more than the 8,000 men. It basically was a town of its own. We had our own post office, tailor shop, post exchange, of course. Later, we had a movie theater. Later, we had our own chapel.
40th and Allen hosted what we now commonly call Buffalo Soldiers.
From 1909 to 1913, the Buffalo Soldiers, 10th Cavalry, they came in here and were stationed here. In general, by the time they left, everybody sort of said they'd been just like anyone else.
My grandmother used to tell me that she, as a young girl, she came, we're talking 19-teens now, okay. She rode the trolley from Burlington to the fort to watch demonstrations, baseball games.
A lot of the regiments, every single Saturday, would invite everybody from the local community of Chittenden County in general, and they would put on an exhibition. They had the bandstand, the gazebo in the park, the band would play. In the 1920s, we had another powerful senator, this time Frank L. Green, and his son actually served here, was an officer here, and he convinced the federal government to buy 12,000 acres in Underhill, Jericho, Bolton, that it's referred to now as the Range, which is still federal land. And buying that 12,000 acres made us a viable base that kept us alive for another 40 years. Right after World War II, when the United Nations was being formed and hadn't been formed yet, and hadn't been determined to go to New York, there was a whole big proposal about the fort being the home of the United Nations.
Really?
And can you imagine? Yeah, the museum has documents about the proposal of making this the home of the United Nations.
Avenue of the Americas? No, we got Route 15. We don't need that.
Can you imagine what that would have been like? After World War II, the fort was closed for a little while, and then it became the Ethan Allen Air Force Base for a few years. They did finally do the shutdown in the early 60s.
After it finally closed, there was some talk, I understand, of maybe adjusting the town of Essex and Colchester lines geographically around it.
It seems silly to cut it in half. Actually, it's about a third in Essex and 2/3 in Colchester. So there was talk about just moving the line and moving the Colchester line to the edge of the fort and having it all be Colchester. But it wasn't accepted and it wasn't done.
So if people want to learn more about the fort, how can they do that?
The museum is open when we're here. But we are here every day, at least some. If you're not living close by and just happen to see it open, the smartest way is to call and just say, when will you be open?
One of the U.S. Army's largest cavalry and field artillery training posts at this place in history.
You're watching